My girlfriend cheated with Justin from the gym and called me a stupid loser who pays the bills. But I recorded everything. And what I did next destroyed her entire life and left her begging at my door. I'm 32 years old. I work in digital marketing. And I need to tell this story because what happened 3 months ago basically destroyed what I thought was the perfect relationship. The truth is, I still have a hard time believing it was all a lie. I mean, 2 whole years of my life with someone who apparently saw me as a joke. I guess I should start at the beginning. When I met Samantha at Chris's Christmas party 2 years ago. Chris is my best friend since high school, one of those friends who knows all your embarrassing stories and still puts up with you. Every year he throws this huge Christmas party at his house, like with 50 people or more, and that year I didn't really feel like going because I had just gotten out of a kind of complicated relationship like 6 months before, and I still didn't feel ready to socialize much. But Chris insisted, told me I needed to get out of my apartment and stop watching Netflix in pajamas every weekend, and he was right, basically. So, I went, and there was Samantha, talking with a group of people near the drinks table. And, I don't know, something about her caught my attention immediately. She had this contagious laugh that you could hear across the whole room, and when Chris introduced us, I found her incredibly easy to talk to. We spent the whole night chatting, and by the end of the party, we already had plans to see each other the following week. The first few months were, honestly, like a movie. Samantha worked in accounting for a mid-sized company where, coincidentally, Chris was one of the managers, so we had that connection in common. We saw each other almost every day, cooked together, watched shows, made weekend plans. After about a year, we decided to move in together to a house we found in a quiet neighborhood. Nothing fancy, but it was fine for us. I paid most of the rent because I earned a little more, but she contributed with groceries and utilities, and it seemed to work. Her parents, Barbara and James, were nice people, like one of those couples who've been married for like 30 years and still hold hands. I liked them, and they seemed to approve of our relationship, always inviting us to family dinners and stuff like that. The only person who never liked me was Natalie, Samantha's younger sister. She was like 24 years old, lived alone in an apartment her parents paid for while she finished I don't know what degree at university. From the beginning, I felt she looked at me weird, like constantly evaluating me and finding me lacking in some aspect only she knew about. Samantha always said that Natalie was like that with all her boyfriends, that she was super protective, but I don't know. There was something about the way she talked to me, always with that kind of mocking tone, that made me feel uncomfortable. But well, I tried not to give it too much importance because after all, she didn't live with us, and we didn't see her that often. Fast forward to like 4 months ago. Things between Samantha and me were still good, or at least I thought so. We had talked several times about the future, about getting married eventually, having kids, all that whole long-term plans thing you do when you think you found the right person. And I was convinced, completely sure that she was my person, So I started planning to propose at Chris's next Christmas party, like to close the circle in the same place where we met. It seemed romantic and meaningful to me, and Chris was super excited about the idea when I told him. First, I went to talk to Barbara and James, because I'm kind of traditional about those things and it seemed like the right thing to do. We went to lunch one Saturday. I told them I wanted to marry their daughter and asked for their blessing. Barbara literally cried with happiness, and James hugged me and told me it would be an honor to have me as a son-in-law. It was a beautiful moment, honestly, and I left there feeling on top of the world. Then I went to look for the ring. I spent like 3 months' salary on a piece of jewelry I thought Samantha would love, and I started planning exactly how the proposal moment would be. All this happened in October, more or less. Chris's party was scheduled for mid-December, so I had time to organize everything perfectly. Samantha didn't suspect anything, or at least that's what I thought. Life went on normally. I went to work, she went to her office, we saw each other in the evenings, we did our usual routines. She had started going to the gym more often, like 3 or 4 times a week, which I thought was great because she had always wanted to get in better shape, and I completely supported her. Sometimes I went too, but I worked late several days and couldn't always go with her. Now comes the part where everything went to shit. Sorry for the language, but there's no other way to describe it. It was a Friday in November, like 3 weeks before the Christmas party. I had planned to go fishing. With some coworkers that weekend, a trip we had organized weeks in advance. We left Friday after work, drove like 2 hours to the lake, set up camp, and the whole thing. And the fishing was terrible that day. We basically caught nothing, and by Saturday morning I was kind of bored and wanting to be home. Plus, I had forgotten my allergy medication and was starting to feel bad with all the pollen from the forest, so I told the guys I was going to head back early. They stayed because they had paid for the cabin for the whole weekend, but I just wanted my bed and my antihistamine. I got home around 2 in the afternoon on Saturday, much earlier than Samantha expected because I was supposed to come back until Sunday night. Her car was in the driveway, which didn't surprise me because it was the weekend and she didn't have any specific plans that I knew of. I came in through the front door and heard voices in the living room. I immediately recognized Natalie's voice along with Samantha's. I was going to greet them, but something about the tone of the conversation made me stop. They were talking about me, and not exactly favorably. I stood there in the entrance hallway, still with my fishing backpack in my hand, listening as my girlfriend and her sister basically tore me apart verbally. Natalie was saying something like, "I can't believe you're still with that loser. He's so boring." And Samantha was laughing. Like that laugh I knew so well, but that now sounded completely different. And she said, I know, but he's convenient for now. He pays the rent and he's stable, I felt like I'd been kicked in the stomach. I literally couldn't breathe for a second. But that wasn't even the worst part, not even close. Natalie continued, "And what about Justin? Are you still seeing him?" And that's when my whole world collapsed. Samantha said, "Of course I am. Actually, I was with him yesterday after the gym. He's so different from Austin. He has so much energy. He's exciting." And they both started laughing, like it was the funniest thing in the world that she was cheating on me. Natalie asked if I suspected anything, and Samantha said no, that I was too trusting and stupid to notice anything, that she could basically do whatever she wanted, and I wouldn't find out. I don't know how long I stood there, frozen in my own hallway, listening as the woman I was planning to marry described me as a convenient idiot who was useful for paying the bills while she had fun with another guy. I started shaking. Not from cold, but from that weird mix of fury and pain that makes you feel like you're going to explode and collapse at the same time. I wanted to go in and confront them, yell at them, get out all the rage I felt, but something stopped me. Part of me knew that if I went in at that moment, I was going to say or do something I'd regret, and another part just couldn't process what I had just heard. I turned around as quietly as I could, left the house, got in my car, and drove aimlessly for like an hour. My hands were shaking so much, I almost went off the road twice. I finally stopped at a cheap motel on the outskirts of town, paid for 2 nights in cash, and locked myself in the room. I didn't call anyone, didn't answer Samantha's messages asking me how the fishing was going. I just sat on that horrible bed that smelled like cheap disinfectant and tried to understand what the hell had just happened. I didn't sleep at all that night. Basically. My head was chaos of conflicting thoughts. On one hand, I was devastated, like 2 years of my life had been a lie. But on the other hand, I was furious. That kind of cold anger that makes you think with total clarity about what you're going to do next. And what I kept thinking over and over was the image of the engagement ring hidden in my sock drawer, that expensive ring I had bought for a woman who saw me as a walking ATM and was cheating on me with a guy from the gym named Justin. Can you believe it? Justin. It wasn't even an interesting name. Sunday morning, I already had a plan. I called Chris and told him everything. Absolutely everything. He was in total shock, like stuttering with rage, because he had been the one who introduced us and felt responsible somehow. I told him it wasn't his fault, that nobody could have known Samantha was capable of something like that. Chris told me his house was open if I needed a place to stay, but I had already made a different decision. I was going to take back my house, my dignity, and my life, but in my own way. Monday morning, while Samantha was at work, I went to the house with 2 friends Chris lent me. We packed absolutely all of Samantha's things. And when I say all, I mean down to the last toothbrush and pair of socks. We filled like 15 boxes with her clothes, shoes, bathroom products, books, everything. I also changed all the locks in the house, hired a professional locksmith who came and put new locks on all the doors. I left all the boxes on the front porch, nicely organized, and taped a note to the front door that basically said, "I know everything about Justin. I know what you think of me. This is my house. I pay for it. And you're no longer welcome here. Your things are outside. Don't try to contact me." After that, I went to a retreat center I found on the internet, one of those quiet places in the mountains where people go to meditate and disconnect from the world. It'll sound weird, but I needed those 2 days of total silence to process everything without distractions. I turned off my phone, didn't check emails, nothing. I just walked through the forest, sat in front of the lake they had there, and little by little, I started to feel like a person again. I was still devastated, obviously, but at least I could breathe without feeling like I was drowning. When I turned my phone back on Wednesday, I had like 50 missed calls, and I don't know how many messages. Most were from Samantha, going through all the stages of grief in fast forward. The first messages were confused, like what happened? Why are my things outside? We need to talk. Then came the angry ones, calling me immature and telling me I was overreacting, that I hadn't even given her a chance to explain. Then the desperate ones, telling me she loved me, that it had been a mistake, that Justin meant nothing. And finally, the manipulative ones, saying that I was also at fault for working so much and not paying attention to her, that I had basically asked for it. I didn't answer any of them, not a single one. Instead, I did something that was probably the hardest part of this whole process. I called Barbara and James. I felt super uncomfortable doing this because I really appreciated them and didn't want to be the one to destroy their image of their daughter, but I also felt they deserved to know the truth. I asked them to meet me for coffee, and when I arrived and they saw my face, I think they already knew. Something very bad had happened. I told them everything, from beginning to end, without omitting any details. I told them about the conversation I had overheard, about Justin, about how Samantha and Natalie had mocked me. Barbara started crying before I finished talking, and James turned pale, like literally all the blood disappeared from his face. I apologized for having to tell them something like that about their daughter, but James interrupted me and told me I had nothing to apologize for, that they needed to know who their daughter really was. It was devastating to see them like that, honestly. What happened next surprised me completely. Barbara and James told me they were going to confront Samantha and Natalie immediately. I told them it wasn't necessary, that I didn't want to cause more family problems, but James told me something I'll never forget. He told me, "Austin, we didn't raise our daughters to treat people like that, and if they're doing it, then we failed as parents, and we have to fix it. I don't wish this on anyone, but it was comforting somehow to know I wasn't crazy, that what had been done to me was genuinely wrong." Turns out, when Barbara and James confronted Samantha, she initially tried to lie, to say it was all a misunderstanding, that I had misinterpreted the conversation. But Natalie, brilliantly, basically confirmed everything, trying to defend her sister, saying things like, "Well, yes, but Austin was boring, and Samantha deserved something better." That was the final nail in the coffin, let's say. Barbara and James made a decision. I never asked for or expected. They cut off all contact with both daughters. I found out about this because James called me like a week later to explain what they had decided. He told me they had talked at length, that Samantha showed no real remorse, only anger at having been discovered, and that Natalie had been an accomplice and facilitator of all this. They had given them an ultimatum: therapy, genuine, apologies, and real change, or they would lose their support. Neither accepted it. Samantha insisted that I was overreacting, and Natalie said her parents were being ridiculous. So Barbara and James cut ties, including the financial support they gave Natalie for her apartment and university. But wait, because the story gets better, or worse, depending on how you look at it. Chris, my friend, who was also Samantha's boss, decided he couldn't have someone with that lack of integrity working on his team. Technically, he didn't fire her for the infidelity because that would probably be illegal, but he found other legitimate reasons. Apparently, Samantha had been constantly arriving late, lying about work hours, and basically doing the minimum effort. Chris documented everything and eventually fired her, citing poor performance and violation of company policies. I didn't ask him to do this. In fact, I told him I didn't want him to risk his position at the company for me, but he told me he had already decided that Samantha wasn't doing her job well anyway. Fast forward to early December. Samantha had been living with Natalie in her apartment after I kicked her out of the house, but with their parents cutting Natalie's financial support and Samantha without a job, things got tense between them really fast. Natalie eventually kicked her out too, apparently after a huge fight where they blamed each other for ruining their relationships with their parents. I found out about all this through Chris, who still had some mutual contacts with them. Chris's Christmas party was coming up, and he asked me if I still wanted to go. Initially, I thought, no. Like the place was too loaded with memories of Samantha. But then I thought, why the hell should I let her ruin this too? It was my tradition with my best friend from before I met her, and I wasn't going to let her take that away from me. So I told him yes, that I was going to go, and that I was going to have a good time. The night of the party, I arrived early to help Chris with preparations, same as every year. There were like 60 people invited. Many of them knew Samantha because they had been at previous parties, but Chris had made sure everyone knew she wasn't invited this year. I felt weird. I'm not going to lie, but there was also something liberating about being there without having to worry about how I looked or what Samantha thought of everything I did or said. The party started well. I was chatting with people, drinking some beers, trying to relax. Around 9 at night, someone knocked on the door insistently. Chris went to open it, and I heard his voice saying firmly, "No, you're not invited. You need to leave." It was Samantha. Of course it was her. I went out to see what was happening, and I saw her standing at the entrance, and honestly, I didn't recognize her for a second. She looked terrible, like she had lost weight, had huge dark circles, unwashed hair, wearing sweatpants and a hoodie, nothing like the always put-together Samantha I knew. When she saw me, her eyes immediately filled with tears, and she started saying, "Austin, please, I need to talk to you. I've been trying to contact you. Please just give me 5 minutes." All the people at the party had gone quiet, obviously, because the drama was impossible to ignore. I felt all eyes on me, waiting to see what I was going to do. Part of me, a stupid and sentimental part, felt sorry for her. But then I remembered exactly what I had heard that Saturday a month ago. Every word, every laugh, every cruel comment, and that pity disappeared. I told her, calm but firm, "We have nothing to talk about, Samantha. You made your choice when you decided to cheat on me with Justin and mock me with your sister." She started saying it had all been a mistake, that she was confused, that she never really wanted to hurt me. I told her, "You know what really hurts? It's not just that you cheated on me, it's that you saw me as an idiot, as someone so stupid that he wouldn't even be worth treating with respect. That's what I can't forgive." Samantha started getting hysterical, yelling that I was cruel, that she had lost everything, her family, her job, her home, everything because of one mistake. I answered that no, that she had lost everything because of her own actions, her own decisions, and that I wasn't responsible for the consequences of her lies. Chris intervened at that moment, along with 2 of his friends, and they basically escorted Samantha off the property. She kept yelling my name as they took her away, and I just turned around and went back into the party. The rest of the night was surreal. People came up to me to tell me I had done the right thing, that I was super mature in how I handled the situation, and honestly, I don't know if I was mature or just emotionally exhausted. But there was something definitive about that moment, you know? Like closing a door that had been half open for weeks. There was no longer any possibility of reconciliation. There was no path back, and that was okay. That was like a month ago. I haven't heard from Samantha directly again, although Chris told me he heard she got a job at a restaurant and is renting a room somewhere. Natalie apparently had to leave university and move to a much cheaper apartment without her parents' help. Barbara and James invited me to dinner 2 weeks ago, just them and me, and they told me I would always be welcome in their home no matter what happened with Samantha. It was emotional, honestly. Am I okay? I don't know. I guess. There are days when I wake up and don't even think about her, and there are other days when I wonder if any of what we lived was real or if it was all an act from the beginning. I sold the engagement ring. Didn't get much back, but at least I freed myself from having it stored away, reminding me how stupid I almost was. I started going to therapy, which I probably should have done years ago regardless of this situation. What I do know is that I'll never go back to someone who betrayed me like that. no matter how much they cry, how much they apologize, or how much they promise to change. Once you cross that line of basic lack of respect, there's no going back for me. And honestly, I'm at peace with that. I'd rather be alone and respect myself than be with someone who sees me as a means to an end. The house feels strange sometimes, too quiet, but it's also mine, completely mine again. I don't have to walk on eggshells. I don't have to worry about someone talking badly about me behind my back. I don't have to share my space with lies. It's liberating in a way I didn't expect. Lessons learned? I guess trust but verify, as they say. Pay attention to warning signs, even the small ones. If someone in your partner's life consistently treats you with contempt, there's probably a reason. And above all, never stay with someone who doesn't respect you, no matter how long you've been together or how too much you've invested in the relationship. I don't know what will happen next, if I'll eventually meet someone else or if I'll be alone for a while. For now, I'm focused on myself, on my work, on my true friendships like Chris who have been there for me without judging. And that, for now, is more than enough.